Hey guys, my name is Zach Tellender. I'm a weightlifting coach and weightlifting YouTube content creator. And this video today is going to be me reviewing the CrossFit Games clean event from 2019, the men's event. And the reason I'm doing it, there was a commenter who goes by CrossFit Fan. I actually posted this to my subreddit, but he asked me to react to this video for 10 straight posts of mine in a row. So that was over 2.5 months of asking me or commenting the same thing over and over again. And so this is the 10 video anniversary, so I figured I would make his wish come true. For those of you guys that want me to discuss something on this channel or talk about it, go to my subreddit, post there. If it gets enough upvotes, if it gets enough attention, I'll absolutely cover it. I have no problems doing that. So yeah, go check that out. It's Zach Tellender. So anyways, let's get into this. I skipped forward a little bit. The barbell starts at 315 pounds or 143 kilos. And there's a lifter here named Matt McLeod who I think has some issues with his technique. And we'll see it a little bit later. For the most part, he's the only one where I feel like there's fixes that need to be made and the way that he attacks it, so on and so forth. The 315 one, though, everyone who was in this session did it pretty easily. So here we go. It's also in quarter speed here. The first thing I wanted to talk about was this position right off of the floor. It's too hinged over. And we'll watch it in full speed after this, but we'll notice he's too far over the bar. His hips are way too high. Now, one thing, when you're snatching, your shoulders need to be somewhat over the bar so that by the time you make contact, you still have leverage. If you're over on top of something, it's easier to pull on it like this, right? To lift your elbows and pull. If you're behind something, it's hard to pull it up like this, right? So, but in the clean, because your grip is narrower and after contact, the bar doesn't have to travel nearly as far as the snatch, you don't need to be over the bar as far. And, you know, this is just a product of, maybe he's not that strong compared to the rest of the field, but his hips really shoot up here. And this position is hard to recover from. He'll clean again, but when I watched this originally, I figured this guy wasn't going to make it much further past 335 pounds, even if that. So we'll watch this in full speed. So yeah, you'll see that hips just really high. Again, it's a little bit difficult to see from that position, but we'll notice it more when we get to the later rounds. So it looks like, and you'll see in the later reps, James Newberry, it just looks like he's just not used to, he just doesn't do enough volume at this because the bar kind of shocks him at the bottom of the squat, and that takes getting used to. His pull technique looks fine, but you know, there's a little bit of a grittiness to cleaning in that everything has to be firing the moment you catch the barbell. The snatch, you can be a little bit more passive, and it doesn't have to be firing to stand it up. But you know, the clean, like I said, the distance from wherever you make contact to the front rack is tiny. So it really becomes a movement of timing, aggression, and grit. It is less intense as far as technical aspects of it go. But yeah, looks like it shocked him a little bit. I was actually really surprised by this gentleman's technique. Looks very, very solid. Super solid. Loud feet, very aggressive in the turnover. You know, I always say, like, CrossFitters don't usually look like weightlifters when they lift. And that's usually where you can see it, is the aggressiveness, the attack on the barbell as after it makes contact in that second pull. Big exception here is Matt Fraser. Guy looks like a weightlifter. He is a weightlifter. All right, so I think the barbell goes up here. All right, so look, here is where, this is why that last rep that I saw, I pretty much determined like this is going to be at least the heaviest or he was not going to be able to make it. And you'll see a better reason of why with this angle. Just make sure you watch his hips. They get up too high. He's way too horizontal. So yeah, you know, if we just go back a little bit here, Again, I'm going to point out a couple things that are very important with this. In the clean, you don't want to be super far over. You don't want your hips to be too high, because when you have to turn over and extend, certain things can happen. And I'll show you right when he gets, so like, look, we have that position. He's way too far over. There's actually a little bit of rounding in his back, you can see. But as he goes to make contact, watch his feet. So one frame here, the next frame, ankles are off, right? This is to make contact right here. So if your heels. If your heels are off the floor, you're not able to deliver the most amount of pressure upward, most amount of force upward into the barbell on contact. And the reason why his heels come up is because his hips are so far back and his shoulders are so far forward. So it's the balancing act of the clean. You don't want to pull your shoulders all the way back behind the bar, right? Because then you have no leverage. But you also don't want to allow your hips to be too high up, because then what happens to Mr. McLeod here will happen to you. And then it's just tough from there. Oh, he gets another attempt. This is where I stopped watching and just figured I was going to watch with you guys. Same exact thing. Same exact thing there. In fact, I would say even more of a rounded back, obviously, because he's more fatigued. So this is where, let's see if it shocks him again in the bottom position. That's the one thing I saw. He doesn't have that grit. His technique is not very bad. I mean, it's totally solid. Yep, has to double bounce out of that. So, I don't know. I don't see how much more he's going to be able to get. These guys are tired too, man. I think this is like the last day or something like that. Ooh. Yikes. This is just it's an optimization thing. Being a CrossFitter, trying to optimize snatching and clean and jerking is just foolish. And I mean in a legitimate way. These guys are cleaning pretty heavy weight, but it's nowhere near what optimal would be for these exact athletes. These guys are capable of a lot more if they switch over to weightlifting, but they're not going to, and that's not what I'm trying to say. Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Easy, yeah. So him and Goodmanson, they both look very legitimate. They're the two guys on here that legit look like weightlifters. I'm not sure about this next one. So that's actually called a Clark. There's a weightlifter. I think this is in California. I don't know the exact term from it. But basically, a lot of times he would pull the bar and just not even go for it. He wouldn't even go for a turnover or to try and catch the bar. And his last name was Clark, so everyone said, "Oh, you Clarked it." So in weightlifting, if you do that, it's called a Clark. Solid. So one thing I've noticed, and I'm not the biggest fan of this, but it is what it is. If you look at his setup, again, this is not what I teach. The other two guys, their setup is how I teach it. So what he does is, instead of using a dynamic start from a solid setup position and just lowering and going, he uses a dynamic start in the sense of going below the bar and then coming up. Right? So he'll drop his hips below the point where he wants to lift it, and then he'll lift them up fast. Low, up. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think it's inaccurate. The other guys will show you their starts. That's what I teach. 355, I think we're well into the 160s. I really don't know the conversion. That's really sad. I know the weight for how it feels, and in competition, I'm never converting because I'm just always around kilo plates. So I really liked his technique. And I'm going to show you the difference here between his start, the way that he attacks his start position compared to Scott Panchik. So rather than Scott Panchik, who sets up, then goes below the bar, then comes up. Bjorgvin Gudmundsson starts from the top, lowers into the start, and goes. And this is typically what I teach. Noticeable breath in, lowers, and goes. I love that. Okay? I have a start technique video in the snatch. I also think I have one in the clean, but it's a very similar concept. I have a very set order of how I teach the start position. And taking that big breath in, knowing how to dynamic start, those are two very important pieces of that. Oh, we got Fraser. Same thing. Breath, lift, lower the hips, and go. Notice these starts, guys. Notice this. Noah Olson. Just hangs on. Nothing really technically to see here. Like, it's hard to, yeah, so he gets buried a little bit. There's no way he's getting this. I think it's just weak in the pool. Like, off the floor, it just looks very, very unbalanced. Yeah, so right away, like, you can see his knees are collapsing in the pool. Right, so this, something that would need to be changed would be some sort of stance. Also, this weight is just massive for him. He's also very young. Development of the legs, like, that takes a lot of time. Like, I actually coach a lot of young athletes who, when they pull off the floor, their knees collapse because they just don't have the leg development, but they might have the speed, athleticism, and certain strength components to be able to manage a 365-pound bar. Consistently, no, but you can see right away his knees start to collapse in. Yeah, it's just not much connection. You know, this just takes lots of training to fix. Like, trying to fix someone's technique on a maximal lift is really silly in my opinion. The only thing I can say is he's lacking training, which every single CrossFitter by definition lacks training because they're not supposed to be specifically training to be a weightlifter. That's what makes it so interesting. You know, these are just super good athletes doing a bunch of other shit, and then they're saying, hey, how much can you clean? That's why it really is impressive to see Bjorgvin Gudmundsson and Matt Fraser lifting with the technique that they are. So this one's interesting, guys. He actually goes off of the hips. So check this out. He cleans off of his hips. And he does have an interesting body type. He looks very stocky, short limbs. And when he catches this clean, you can see a really imbalanced squat. But it sometimes works for some people. Really rowing it into his hips, but he makes contact with his hips. It's actually really powerful to do this, but there's a distinct difference, right, from cleaning off the hips and cleaning off the high thigh or even the mid thigh. A lot of women end up cleaning off of the hips because it gives them like a very solid target to nail. Maddie Rogers, Kate and I, most of the Chinese weightlifting team on men and women's side, a lot of people clean off of their hips. I don't teach it necessarily, but if you have a certain body proportions, you can try it. But see, like, this position is a very imbalanced squat position, right? But it's kind of just maybe how he's built, maybe how he's trained. His knee, I mean, you could see it past this judge's ear, but he's in a very low position, and his hip crease is very, like, almost in line with his knee crease, which is very interesting. He's low, but his hip crease is in line with his knee crease. It's, you know, you usually want to be able to see a compact position. So if this was my ankle right here, ankle and foot, knee, come down to the hip, and then up like that. Typically, you want to see that. He's going, let's say this is my torso, femur goes straight out like that. Shin and calf come back like that. So he's very low, but it's an imbalanced position. There we go. Oh boy. Stoked about that. I love the professionalism of this, you know? It's really fun to watch. Like, this is really fun to watch. Like, just, you know, I think CrossFit's got their shit together. Big breath. Lower the hips. Matt Fraser, dude, absolutely pipes that. All right, we have Noah Olson here, and based off of his last lift, I'm not sure if this one's going to go down. I'll be surprised. Expect a grinder. So he's bowing out. It's probably smart. I don't think he would hit that. Not many people have taken 10 seconds off and come back and hit a maximal clean. So there's a nice Clark there. You guys learned what that is. Scott Panchik, 5 more pounds. I think he's going to get this. He hasn't shown any sign of slowing down. He has pretty good technique. But again, guys, look at his start. He's going to bring his hips down below his start position, and then he's going to raise them up and go at the same motion. Down and then up. Very solid, actually. Honestly, the aggression at his turnover is what helped him make that lift. At that point, it was just a maximal front squat, and I'm sure he's front squatted well over a 400. So, God, this is so cool. Like, it's way more exciting than a weightlifting session, sadly. Nah, I can't say that. It's different things. There's another Clark. I don't know. Yeah, he's out. He's going to pipe this one. Ooh. Hard to tell technique-wise if anything happened. But again, once we start lifting heavy like this, technical stuff is just difficult, right? Because it's just the heavy weight is what's making you miss. It's not necessarily your technique. And then with CrossFitters, it's the lack of training, right? They physically cannot train to be good weightlifters. Matt Fraser's already been there, done that. So here we go. We got 375, another 5 pounds. Get up. Wow. I had no idea that Scott Panchik was lifting this. That's big, man. That's pretty big. I wonder what body weight. I think he's probably around 80-something kilos, so it's pretty good, pretty good clean right there. You can definitely see off the floor it's starting to slow down a little bit. Definitely. To a certain extent, I think a lot of these guys, like, and basically cleaning and snatching, you want to see a substantial change of speed at contact, right? But having said that, you don't want to pull so slow off the floor that the speed change has to be so drastic in order to get enough bar height. So there's a balance between getting enough speed off the floor, but not too much because you want to have a change of speed. I always like to think about it, you're going fast and then you're going faster. You don't want to go slow to fast. You don't want to go fast to same speed. You want a change of speed, but it can't be a crawl off the floor. So what we're starting to see here with these two guys is the bar's starting to slow up off the floor, and they can only do so much at contact. And this is for the win here. Wow. Like at that point in this guy's career, it's all muscle memory. Like he has probably cleaned 140 plus, like several thousand more times than the rest of the people in this building. Yeah, while he's not optimizing his weightlifting, he'll always have that advantage. He'll always have that technical advantage. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. CrossFit fan, that was for you. If any of you guys have any suggestions for videos, please put them on my subreddit, and I will get to them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one.